Unbiased Trades here, and today we're going to be going over what to track for day trading. This is mainly aimed at small caps. You would be tracking different things if you were looking at, for example, SPY or ES. But this could be applied also to large caps as well. Just some things may not be important, some things may be more important. You'll kind of have to discover that depending on what niche you're going towards. But yeah, let's just get into it. So I'm basically just going to show you ideas and examples. I think that's the best way to show you what to track, because at the end of the day, it is a bit subjective depending on what your setup is. There's great like baseline things you should always track. I think I've mentioned in other videos as well, like, open, close, date, the symbol, high, low, volume, market cap, outstanding shares, short percentage, float. All those are like very basic good ones to track. Surprisingly, I found float isn't extremely important. Like for market cap and float, I mainly put them into decently sized brackets. So it would be from 0 to 100 million market cap, or like for float, it'd be 0 to 10, or maybe I would put one smaller one for float because float can be more volatile if it's below like 5 million. But still, to get accurate readings on float is still difficult unless you do just read the filings yourself, but that does take time. So I think you'll realize some things are harder to track accurately compared to others. Like open, close, and date, and high and low, and volume. It will always be the same most of the time. You'll never really get inaccurate data for that. Outstanding shares seems to be decently accurate, but outstanding shares doesn't give you a full picture, as they're just the amount of shares that's currently um, on, like, not on the market, but not even available technically. And then the float is the actual shares that are available currently. And then just some other ones. So gap percentage, if you're looking for like gap and crap kind of things, then gap percentage, you'll want that. High of day percentage and low of day percentage. So high and low doesn't really give you much info on the day, but how much in percentage wise did it go to high of day and to low of day? Now that actually gives you information that you can get a median from. You can't get a median just from all the highs because all the different open prices and everything. So definitely percentages are really useful in this way. Time of high of day and time of low day. These are two great ones. I think these ones are better personally, at least for me, to be keeping in a monthly cycle. So you don't really use like the whole 2 year average or whatever you're looking at. But on a monthly cycle, you're seeing where the high of day normally is recently and where the low of day normally is recently. And then you'll also want to have a standard deviation for these, because it is useful to see how much it deviates, so you're not too certain exactly when time of lower day is, but you have a general idea and you can make an informed decision. For example, if you're holding and it's holding up really well, and it's kind of near high of day and it's still at like 1 p.m. and the medium high of day is at like 10, you're thinking, okay, that doesn't look too normal for my setup. Maybe I should get out of this trade or something like that. Um, High of the first minute and high of the fifth minute. This is pretty much just opening range, but I have found it to be kind of useful. It isn't something you could base a whole trade about, unless you're doing like an opening range thing for SPY or something, or going long straight out of the open. But it is useful. Some of these things, just more niche, but they can be useful to setups. Now, low before 12 and low after 12. I got this from Short Bear, and it was a really interesting find because it gave him conviction to hold past 12, but also it's very useful to know, is the low more favorable for you before 12 or after 12? It's a very easy thing. You can just set a timer on, and at 12 you can check, okay, how much has it moved down currently? Is it down 10%? And the medium is about 12. You could be maybe happy with that then, or if you have a lot more after 12, then maybe you want to hold it just to see if you get another like leg down on the stock. Now the high between every hour, you'll definitely need a data provider for this. You could track it manually, but it would be kind of a pain. But yeah, the high between every hour would be very useful, so you can build like kind of a chart, but you can just see the percentage changes between each hour, and then you can get a medium of all those, and you can kind of base that of how the stock should look throughout the day. But yeah, it's a useful one. Now, pre-market high and pre-market low. Personally, I don't think pre-market takes that much bearing on my kind of setups anymore. I think I was over bearing on pre-market highs, but they are still useful to track. It's still useful to see how they are respected, how they work. They can make a very good long setup. Like I know Day Trading Zoo made a long setup recently above. If the pre-market high was broken between this kind of certain time with a certain amount of volume, he would go long. So yeah, it can be useful. You know, every variable can be, you know, turned into a setup if you just see a pattern. But yeah. And then the time of these two as well, just so you can see kind of the medium average and see how the stock should be playing out. There's also been interesting finds of that, like, you know, if the pre-market high is at 8 a.m., is it more likely to close red, or is it more likely if it, you know, is at 7 a.m.? So, you know, interesting things like that you can look into. Dilution, even for me, I don't have a great way of tracking dilution. It's something I'm working on, but dilution, if you can track it manually, then that is great. If you're subscribed to like Dilution Tracker or something, it does take time. I want to do it using a data provider, but it's, you know, quite difficult to find at the moment. Bounce percentage. Now this is, I don't really use this, but for some setups this could be really useful. So if you're going for like the bounce after high of day, my apologies, sorry, I'm a bit tired. But after high of day and you're going for a bounce, like shorting the next bounce, then you could be looking how much is that percentage, and what kind of time that bounce would normally happen. So that can be very useful for you. Volume at 30-minute open. So this is just the total amount of volume from open to 30 minutes. Some people base this about volume forecast. So if you're interested in volume forecasting for your setup, then that could be very useful. And volume every hour I find incredibly useful because you can see you know, how the volume is distributed for the whole day, so this can be useful for many setups. I also like to have a column for questions to investigate. This is pretty much just to show me what I'm interested in at the moment. And for me, it's like monthly averages, best price range, best stop size, best entry time, best entry average spike, how much spike until setup is wrong, probability of a red close probability at different times. I've pretty much quantified all of those semi-recently, but I really recommend having questions to investigate column. It makes you think a lot. It makes you remember what you were interested in, you know, because you're not doing all this in one day. You may do it over a couple of days, or you may think of something on one day but don't have time to do it. So I definitely recommend taking notes of this, even on your phone. That'd be a great way of doing it as well. Categories. This is a very basic idea, but if you were just looking at gap and craps, you should have a category for gap and craps and the ideal criteria for gap and craps, and you could, you know, sort your spreadsheet to different categories if you had multiple setups. And now just for some examples, so here's how my stats for market cap look. So this is just from 0 to 50, then 50 to 100, and it kind of keeps on going in 50s until a certain point. So we can see just all the medium stats. I don't use averages, I just use mediums for these. So we can see outstanding shares medium, volume, time of higher day, pretty self-explanatory, all the ones we kind of talked about. And then the 1 minute high percentage and the 5 minute high percentage. So how much it's moving in percentage terms for that 1 minute high and the 5th minute high. So this just give me good ideas of what's more ideal for my setup, what has the lowest drawdown, what kind of spike percentage I'm seeing, all that kind of stuff. And then I also have always red close probabilities on the right for all my criteria, so I can see what ones are the best. It's highlighted in yellow if it's in the top 3. These are just 2 examples here. So we can see close red percentage 78% currently, and this is on a 6-month database of all the gappers over 20%. If you are interested in that code, please message me below. I'll leave the Twitter thread below about the gappers code and how to pull historical data and how I can just sort it for you quite quickly. And then also I really recommend custom parameters on for testing. This is really, really useful. It's quite easy to build in Excel. You can just make different conditional statements with if commands, and you can just, you know, type in anything you want. So for this example was, I want below 300 million market cap, below 100 million outstanding shares, below 100 mil volume, and above 40% gap with a price above 1, and with a stop amount of 0.15, which is 15%. And then we can see all the info on that. So we can see it closes red 88% of the time. We have a medium info on parameters of 13% to high of day, -21 to low of day. Change on medium is -12%, and then the time and the pre-market volume. And then I have some more ones going on from there. And also one extra thing I definitely recommend is the stop info. So you want to know how many times your stop is getting hit. So we can see it's not hit 37 times and it's hit 25 times for this parameters. So we can see it's a 60%, you're not getting hit. So it's kind of like a 60% win rate. But then you'll need to look into like what's your average winner, what's your average loser, how does that stack up with R and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll need to put it into a equity curve so you can see if this is actually profitable or not. And then just a final example was a medium pre-vol for green close. So this is just the medium pre-market volume that would equal green close. And we can see it's about 2.6 million here. And for a red close, mistyped it here, but for a red close, it's about 4.5 million. So not necessarily, if you have a lot of volume in pre-market recently, that doesn't actually mean it's going to be a runner. Technically, that could equal a red close, but you need to look into these things further, as there's like nuances here and there, and you'll notice them when you're looking through the data. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I do see so many questions on Twitter about like, what do I track, asking everyone. So hopefully this gives you kind of a guide to where to get started and what columns to put in your Excel table. Thank you for watching.